everyone. It is a slightly changeable day here in Wolverton. I just come from home because I still live on this line, much more convenient than an Airbnb in one of Britain's dullest cities. Anyway, it's day 3. It is the last day. I will make it to the source today. I'll probably make it there in a couple hours. It is sort being the beginnings of a river. It's really flat because it, just like most rivers in the Midlands, forms out of like bog. So there's some like rolling hills, but it's just flat and the water just appears from runoff and ground flow, and it flows to be really big when going into the wash in King's Lynn. Anyway, westward to Buckingham I go. And with just coming off a train, first thing we spot is of course a railway viaduct. This is the Havisham and Little Linford viaduct, probably the longest named viaduct in Britain. But yeah, this carries West Coast Main Line, of course, from London to Birmingham. And here's where it crosses the River Ouse, which has a little parallel channel there, but is flowing there. So if you'd seen my Cosgrove and Wolverton videos, you would have known that, I mean, the canal's only a little over there. So I used to live near here. I came round to this junction where that bridge is. I remember it very vividly, about 3 times. Every time it was utterly drained. It was beyond flooded. It was impassable. It's so weird now looking at it. And I don't think many of the plants have recovered. They're still pretty flat. But it's bone dry. It is so strange. Hopefully everywhere that was super wet has stayed like this. Duck! And we're out the other side. That is what we crossed. Well, went under. So, behind me there, the iron trunk, what I just went under, and despite my Freudian slip, I have crossed it on the boat. Of course, when we lived up here, it's between Cosgrove and Wolverton, and was built 200 years ago so that boats no longer had to go all the way down, follow the river for a bit, and then get out back into the canal and go all the way up. It was very dangerous. So we had railway number 1, now we've got highway number 1. Luckily, this will be the only highway we see. As is the same with the railway, but that's quite unfortunate. And under we go. So, just taking a little detour away from the river. I am still paralleling the river, but look at some of the... Okay, maybe not that one. But these ones, look at these buildings. I've gone back in time to fairy tale land. I'm in Stony Stratford, the Milton Keynes' northern sister, original Roman origin town to Fenny Stratford. And it shows, especially with that building you can just see there behind the gate. It's amazing. This place is beautiful. I never made it here whilst we were in Wolverton and Milton Keynes. But there's such a glow up from Wolverton and Milton Keynes. So that building is, I think, now called St. Paul's. It is a complex with houses and offices, but in times has been an orphanage and a school run by a rich benefactor from this town. And it's a beautiful building. This town throws up surprise after surprise. This tower, it's like one in one of the villages near Marsworth I saw recently. It's just all here alone. That was clearly a much bigger door, and there was clearly a window there. And my guess is it was part of a church. But we still got a teeny weeny door here. So if you look beyond the juice box, there is a rather macabre poem written in this bench that's in this hut, which is just here. That is built on the edge of where there clearly used to be a window and a nave. So I just read the little info board, shock horror, it was a church. And it burnt down 300 years ago, but someone, actually no, it was the whole community, I think, paid to make sure the tower remained, because somehow, despite the fact hot air rises, I guess it could have more room to rise in the tower, yet the tower didn't burn. And they hoped that they could rebuild the church, but that clearly never happened. I suspect they're not very happy at the moment. Well, we are not only a country of comical pub names. But seriously, they must have known. They must have planned to do that. Car park at rear at the Cock Hotel. I imagine that's happening in a lot of the rooms upstairs. And then next door is the Bull Hotel. I imagine these have had these names for 300 years. And they even knew what they were doing then. We found the other church. Which seemed like it had its time to be rebuilt. So I made it to the first village, Beachhampton, and of course that means our first church. I've just been inside. It is a beautiful little church, as always, and very cool for these pretty warm conditions. And a beautiful stained glass window on the end there. And a little wooden trellis on the tower. And now, village number 2, Wolverton. Quite the exhilaration. I remember having to do this for a short time while doing the Ridgeway. Behind me, yep, there you see the van. That is a very busy main road. It's the main road between Wolverton and Buckingham. Some hairy driving, definitely. Nothing life-threatening. But what a contrast, we're out on this barely 1 car wide track going round. Well, here I think it's a turnip field. I'm taking a more scenic way to Buckingham, slightly further from the river, but I don't care. Well, I think this is turning out to be a much nicer way to go than the main road. Just going past some very expensive, and I think one stately home. So, another church, that means another village. It's still kind of Buckingham. It's on the edge of Buckingham. It's called Maids Morton. I didn't realise Buckingham was so big, it ate up surrounding villages. Anyway, so it goes down there, and there's a beautiful house here. So, finally made it to Buckingham, and I've very much got white helmet hair. Behind me here is the jail here. Not a jail anymore. It'd be a bit stupid to have it surrounded by all these buildings. But it's been here for about 300 years. It was built by the 4th Baronet of Stowe, Richard Temple, who was MP at the time around here, so it was probably a bit of a knobhead. And it was a jail for 100 years, and then flipped between being a rifle group centre and a tea shop, and now it's a museum. So, on the way to Stowe. I am getting slightly again further from the river, but the roads nearest the river are too busy. And this will be a pretty diversion, like the last one. And we have made it to Stowe as the Grand Arch. I did not see this in person, but I saw a drawing of it at the Bridgewater Monument in Albury near Burko. And now I'm seeing it in person. I'm going to be able to touch it. Okay, maybe not. It's roped off. That's a shame. It's got these little turrets. There it is up front with perfectly aligned Stowe House right down the middle there. I mean, the aristocracy have done some terrible things, but they did build some spectacular houses. I am surrounded by sheep and sheep shit. So, I've made it to another one of the gates, I guess you would say. This is just two coach houses. Oh, there's a little gate next to that one. A little bar on the left, right, either one. A very sort of French-esque design. I saw a lot of buildings like that in Buckingham. Almost, along with this vegetation, feels like I'm in north or central France. Now back to the river. The river I meant to be cycling along. I rejoin it in a few minutes. When you're near the end, you can never cycle alongside the river. The river's too narrow and the ground around it is too boggy. So you just zigzag where you can. Just looking at that sign, they actually named a place Dadford. I wonder if there's Mumford next to it. Wait, no, that's a band. So there's the boycott farm shop. Is that trying to send a message? I know the verb has only one T in it, but I doubt it is, because why would you boycott a farm shop by going to one? Maybe you get there and it's a massive Tesco. And why would you boycott a farm shop? They're so cute and brilliant and much nicer than a Tesco. So, village number 4 down there, Water Stratford, with all these lovely farm buildings. However, I'm now going to go down that street. So I found a bridle way that more or less goes pretty close to the river, but I'm reenacting the Icknield Way, all these fields, the flint and chalk, gravel, dirt, and all this corn. But the river, I think, is just down there, so I'm closer to it than I've been since Stony Stratford. So next village, this is Westbury, not the one in Wiltshire. This is a lot smaller, but it's got the same countryside aesthetic with all the stone houses. I'm not far from the source now. So we've made it to the final village of the river, and apparently it's been village of the year quite a few times. I wonder if that was out of the whole country or like just Northamptonshire. I think we're in Northamptonshire. Well, I'm expecting it to be pretty. So I made it into Syresham, and it is truly incredibly pretty. There are definitely villages in Cornwall prettier, but definitely the prettiest in Northamptonshire, I would say. And here we cross what is not the River Ouse, but a tributary to it. So in Syresham, it's sort of the beginning because it's split. It's where the 4 or 5 or so tributaries all merge, and then the River Great Ouse really starts. But there's a lake a little north, which is the closest I'm going to get to being at the proper source. There's such a delightful woody smell going along this treed avenue. It's so delightful. Almost there. So behind me there in the ditch is one of the first trickles of one of the 4 or 5 tributaries that will come together in Syresham to form the River Great Ouse. I think this is the longest and most northerly one. But yeah, this is as far as I'm going to go today. Here I am, near enough to one of the many sources of the River Ouse that all are in a ring around Syresham.